obviously with the fallout of relegation from the Premier League, we're obviously going to be talking probably for the next couple of weeks, maybe even month or so until the transfer window closes, which will probably be about end of August, beginning of September, normally the summer window. I want to talk about transfers. I want to talk about a loan transfer that took place in the January transfer window that, as far as I'm concerned, went right and wrong at the same time. And I'm going to explain my thinking about why I make both of those statements. So there's been a few players that have put out statements in the last day or two, which, if you read between the lines, are basically players saying their goodbye. But the one I really want to talk about is Axel Disasi, because, as I say, I think that's a transfer that went right and wrong at the same time. And I'd really like your opinions, because I want to see whether I'm just sort of like thinking outside the box here, or whether there's maybe a few other people that think the same as me. You've got a comment section below. Get stuck in. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe and hit the thumbs up icon. And if you've got a hype spare, please feel free to put that in the direction of the channel. It all helps. So, Axel Disasi. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. When his name was first mentioned in connection with coming to the club, I was not exactly impressed. I have to say, I've seen him a few times playing for Chelsea, and I think he was on loan at Villa, if I remember rightly, last season. And not really sort of like someone that I looked at and thought, oh, wow, I'd love to see him plying his trade at the London Stadium. But to be fair, he came in at the in the transfer window in January, and to be fair, the performances that he put in, I really changed my mind about him. To be fair, I've totally got done an about turn with his performances he put in. You know, he blended really well with Konstantinos Mavropanos, because it was one of those things that I thought that Mavropanos, in terms of his level of performances, he seemed to step up a notch when Disasi was alongside him, as opposed to either Kilman or Todibo. And I think Disasi probably got the good end of the deal as well, in the sense that his performances, probably he was complimented as well by Mavropanos. I think theirs was a partnership that I think brought out the best in one another. That's how it seemed to me. And his debut for West Ham was in, I think it was the 7th of Feb, which was the away game at Turf Moor. We beat Burnley 2-0. But the thing was, for those of you that have been watching the channel for a little while, will remember some of my videos prior to that winter transfer window opening up. And I made the point that we needed to have all of our ducks in a line, so to speak, and to make sure that on the opening day of the window, we knew exactly who we were going for, and we were going to get them fairly early in the window. Unfortunately, with Axel Disasi, and this is where I make the point that it was a transfer that went right for what he was able to produce on the pitch for the club whilst representing West Ham. But the fact that he came in right at the last knockings of the transfer window and didn't make his debut until the 7th of February against Burnley, I'm left with that feeling of, well, what would have happened if we'd have managed to get things sorted out ahead of time? Now, I remember at the time there was rumours swirling around that he was none too keen on making the move to the London Stadium. But that being said, we live in an era of football where money rules, whether you like it or whether you don't. And we were talking about our position as a Premier League club, which obviously we've now since relinquished. But I think if it was a case of trying to sort of like put a couple of extra bob on the table, then us not doing it presented something of a false economy. Now, when you look at our fixtures in January, the league fixtures, we actually got a couple of decent results without him. It has to be recognised. We went away to Tottenham, beat them 2-1. We played Sunderland at home and beat them 3-1 in the month of January, prior to Disasi stepping foot onto the pitch in claret and blue. However, you've also got to factor in the fact that there was also 2 league games that we played right at the beginning of January. One was the away 3-0 defeat against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and one was a home loss 2-1 against Nottingham Forest. Now, okay, you could turn around and say that would he have made a fundamental difference? We'll never really truly know. But I think that if he'd have been available to play in either of those games, I think he would have massively stiffened up our back line, it has to be said. And I don't think we lose both of those games. In my opinion, I think that Disasi could have been the difference between us getting 0 points as we did, and maybe picking at least a point up here, a point up there in a couple of games that happened in January that maybe we didn't. So I do wonder, because bear in mind, we were short of Premier League survival by, it was 2 points and a bit of goal differences besides. So really we needed another 3 points. Now, if Disasi had been involved against Wolves, might that have been a draw? Might it have been still a defeat? Just less? Who knows? We'll never know. And the same with the Forest game. But this just feeds into the often held opinion that people have of David Sullivan, that he has this little thing of wanting to get transfers done late so that he can save on the wages, which just beggars belief. You sort of sit here now, and if that was actually his motivation, and that's the reason why this transfer didn't get done in the nick of time on the early stages of the window, as opposed to right at the death when this actually happened, if that was actually his motivation, well, the geezer's a bigger moron than I gave him credit for, honestly. Because now you look and go, okay, so if that was what he did, if that was the reason why it happened so late, what did he save on the wages? Let's say Disasi was on 80 grand a week, okay? So David Sullivan's essentially saved around about £320,000 on Disasi's wages in the interim. Now, I then sort of go, well, what's relegation cost us? 100 million, 150 million, 180 million? I mean, depending upon how long we're down in the Championship, who knows? Maybe it's going to be even more than that. So, David Sullivan saving on 4 weeks' wages for a player, it's neither here nor there. It just and it shines a light for me on his unsuitability to continue as the majority shareholder, as the chairman of this club. He needs to go. He needs to go. Because I think if that transfer, and the other ones besides, but I would certainly say Disasi, because he really did impress in his loan. And I think had we stayed a Premier League club, I think there might have been conversations about turning that loan deal into something a bit more permanent. I mean, apparently his aunt supports us. But anyway, but like I say, just I cannot get my head around wanting to save on the wages of the player. So let's string out the deal and get it done right at the very death, and then we'll save. Like I say, if he was on 80 grand a week, let's say 100 grand a week, 100 grand a week at Chelsea, whatever. That's so for 4 weeks' wages, £400,000. That's what you've saved against what we've lost for relegation. I can't get my head around it. I'm struggling to understand the logic, but David Sullivan, if that's your business acumen coming to play, then that pretty much tells us what we need to know. You ain't fit to run this club, mate. You ain't fit to run this club. Pack your bags and go. Your time has passed. Give the reins over to someone with half an ounce of brain and a little bit of ambition about themselves and the financial muscle to be able to do what needs to be done, because you've been here 16 years or thereabouts. Your time has come and gone. You need to go, mate. Because if you think that's a great strategy to employ as a Premier League chairman, mate, I don't know quite what else to say. But anyway, I dare say the people that are watching this will probably have their opinions on whether David Sullivan has made good business decisions in that transfer window, and that being one of them. But as I say, I just think having Disasi available from the earlier portion, the one game he wouldn't have been available for would have been a game at the back end of January where we Chelsea beat us at Stamford Bridge. Obviously, with Chelsea being his parent club, he wouldn't have been eligible for that. So that's fine. But those games that we played in January in the league, which, like I say, I'm principally talking about the 3-0 away defeat at Wolves, the 2-1 home defeat against Forest. If Disasi had been available, maybe, just maybe, that would have made all the difference. But instead, we're sitting here wondering what might have been. But what say you? Comment section is below. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the stream, give us a hype if you've got one available, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Come on, you Irons.
West Ham!